Is it rolling? Okay, fantastic. I'm David Elmore with NESA at the Jamboree, and I'm here with Mr. Tim Ward and Mr. Ed Ward, and they are part of the four guys that we're just presenting, and I just interviewed Steve and Rob. So we're going to get in here and talk about scouting and family and so forth. So what I'd like to start off with is ask you, Mr. Ward, how did you become involved in scouting in the first place?
I became a Cub Scout in 1945 when a young lady down the block from us said to my mother, "It would be good if he joined the Cub Scouts." That's how I got it. And 71 years later, here I am.
That's fantastic. And I should make a note, I forgot to mention, if you notice around Mr. Ward's neck, he is a distinguished Eagle Scout, and that is a special privilege. And it's a special privilege to be able to get to talk to you and to get to work with your young sons and your grandson on this program and on this Jamboree, because we just fell in together, and I think we're all feel like brothers. So thank you so much. Thank you for bringing them to us. And then, Tim, how did you get involved in scouting?
I got involved because I was at some school-related event. I don't remember what. I think it might have been like orientation for first grade. And they had a table set up for the Cub Scouts. And I said, "Dad, that looks cool." And then joined up a couple weeks later. My dad ended up den leader, and the rest is history.
Well, fantastic. Well, actually, let me go ahead and ask another question that's kind of is related, which is, tell me a little bit about what were some of your favorite experiences as a scout? Something that just steps out of your mind, and when you were a scout, wow, this was something fun we did.
Going to the Jamboree down at Valley Forge in 1952, Actually, 1950, I was 14 years old, and it was really, I had gone to camp, but this was the first time I had been with a lot of kids that I didn't know, but a week and a half later, I knew them all. And so that was a great experience. And then taking my youngest son, who was here, to Philmont with 9 other teenagers as one adult. That doesn't happen anymore. Youth protection says you're not supposed to be alone with 10 kids, let alone one. But that was a great experience. I had been to Philmont when I was younger, but not with one of my own. So those two experiences were really unique.
And actually, Steve mentioned that as a special bonding experience that he had, and he actually got a little emotional.
He was crew chief, and I said, "You will not lead. You will not lead. You will pick somebody each day to lead, and you will be second. And you will make sure you know which way you're going and which way he's supposed to go. And therefore, the other 9 boys in the contingent had a day at leading the contingent or the crew to the next site. So I think that, he was the crew chief, and that's the way it was. And it worked very well.
Fantastic. And Tim, how about you? You're still kind of a youngster, but what is some of your favorite scouting experiences?
Well, one is definitely the week I spent at NYLT, National Youth Leadership Training, because that set me up for a lot of success with what I learned there, because I was then a patrol leader after that. Then the year after that I was assistant patrol leader, but was essentially patrol leader because my patrol leader was never there. Then I was patrol leader for 2 more years in Troop 16, and everything I learned at NYLT made all that possible. And also it showed me that Remember the Titans is a really good movie. And then besides that was my first time going to summer camp with my second troop, Troop 16. Because that was the most fun I ever had at summer camp. Because back with 416, I was kind of like socially awkward, like kind of left out a lot. But then I had a real good group of friends in 16 and really made the difference. That and in 16, they didn't make it mandatory to do polar bear, so we weren't getting up at 6 o'clock every morning to jump in a freezing cold lake. So that was a big bonus.
Fantastic.
And in my troop, you would have jumped into the lake every morning.
See, that's the way it was in 416.
Fantastic. Well, a quick question on now. Tell us a little bit about your trail to becoming an Eagle Scout.
Well, as I said earlier today, it wasn't easy because my father never pushed me. And I tried not to push my sons. I tried to encourage them, but not to push them. So 2 out of the 4 are Eagle Scouts. One achieved first and the other achieved life, but he didn't want to do a project. But, you know, it's not easy to be in a troop and be the scoutmaster of a troop. You know, when you're encouraging kids to go all the way, you have to point out what you went through and what you did. And when my father was replaced as scoutmaster because he had 3 years and he wanted to be on the committee, this guy came back from the Korean War and said to my best man and myself, "You guys aren't doing anything, why don't you quit?" But we loved the program so much and the weekends and summer camp that we said, well, I guess we got to do something and we got to do it fast because we're running out of time. So that was the impulse. This man, who's now deceased, but he's why I'm an Eagle Scout.
Fantastic. And Tim, how did you get to your trail?
Well, it all started way back in Cub Scouts when my dad mentioned that he was an Eagle Scout, and I was like, "What's that?" And he was like, "Oh, it's this big important thing." And I was like, "I'm gonna do that." And it got a bit rocky around the midpoint of that whole journey, but I got there eventually, like just barely in time.
Fantastic. I see your class of 2017. What class are you of Eagle Scout?
55. 1955.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I was 1 month shy when I did my border review of my 19th birthday. Now you got to understand, back in those days we started at 12 and we went until 19. Now it's 11 and you go to 18. It's still the same 7 years, but it was close. But you know, my best man, who's a year younger, he's my Eagle Scout along with me. And we have that in common, as well as we love to go sailing, you know, cruising and all those kind of things. So we do a lot of things together. The 4 of us do a lot of things together.
Fantastic. I know that she's about to wrap up, Miss Seaton, but what I'd like to do is, the next question I'd like to ask is there any kind of sage advice that you'd like to give to the young men that are either working towards their Eagle Scout or whether they are Eagle Scouts and what they should do to continue their life?
You're a part of a team. It's called a patrol. And you also, that patrol is part of a troop. So we used to have a rule. Try and be first class after the first year is over. Try and be star. And before you enter high school, try and make life. Now you have 2 years before you run into girls and cars to achieve Eagle. So these are goals that you need to set for yourself, but you have the help of your fellow patrol members and those that have gone before you in the troop. So,
absolutely, Tim.
Since so much of Eagle is being a good leader, always know how to deal with stress and anger. Don't swing at the little kids, no matter how much you want to. because the children are our future, no matter how obnoxious they may be. And besides that, make sure you have a good support network, because even though you're the leader, you don't have to do it alone. And I've seen, and I have failed in the past because I've tried doing it alone and failed miserably. But yeah, so just keep your patience and have a good support network.
Absolutely. Tim, thank you so much for coming and doing this. Ed, thank you so much. This is
Good meeting
a
you.
pleasure, absolute pleasure.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. This is NESA at the Jamboree.